The world has never been so volatile. Dramatic political changes are sweeping North America and Europe, while the Middle East burns and China looks to ward off challenges from both inside and outside of her borders. Economically, the world has yet to fully recover from the 2008 crisis, and many governments have already adopted negative interest rates, or, like the United States, are considering it.
In light of the experience of European countries and others that have gone to negative rates, we're taking a look at them again.
All of this has created unprecedented interest in gold. The price has risen nearly 20% since the beginning of this year. For investors, one of the most effective ways to profit from gold has been to buy stocks in companies that mine it. For several years, the global commodity downturn has meant the prices of these firms have been hovering at all-time lows. For savvy mining executives, this has also translated into opportunities to pick up incredible gold assets at rock-bottom prices. One of the best examples of this is K92 Mining, a company that just recently purchased a formerly producing high-grade gold mine in Papua New Guinea from Barrick Gold, the world's largest gold producer. Barrick purchased it themselves back in 2007 for just over $140 million US, but shut it down in 2009. Now, with the gold price rising, K92 has an extraordinary opportunity to not only flip the switch on a guaranteed gold-producing mine called Mfimpa, but to also explore the area around it for even more potential finds, the Cora Project.
Hi there, how you doing? Good to see you.
Tommy Humphreys, the founder of CEO.CA, recently had an opportunity to speak with K92's CEO, Ian Stalker.
Why are you excited about this project?
A number of reasons, Tommy, but not least of which is the geological endowment that exists in Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is an island that forms part of what's known as the Ring of Fire in that part of the Pacific Basin. And there's a range of very large gold, copper mining operations there. And indeed, the project itself, when it was acquired by Barrick, was seen as that another opportunity to add a further large mine to Barrick's portfolio within the worldwide growth that they had taken place at that time. So for us to acquire this project in Papua New Guinea is hugely exciting because we've got a starting project, which is the small Mfimpa mine. We've a growth project in Cora, and we've still got our 400 square kilometres of exploration territory that within this ring of fire that I've just quickly described to you means that there's a real chance of a very large mine popping out of this little company.
How do you build a successful mining business?
Look, there's a series of building blocks, and there's no 100% guarantee. I wish there was, and I'd probably be doing another job. But really, you start from the basics, and the basics, no matter where you are, is the quality of the asset. And in this case, we have an asset that we acquired from Barrick, finally acquired it in February 2015, which is just over a year ago. But from that acquisition, we acquired a set of assets on the ground which include an already built mill processing facility that was built in 2006 by a recognized engineering company called Asenco. It's a kind of common name around a lot of the mining community. We have an asset that's got a resource. The resource itself started in 2005 and 6, was reviewed several times by Barrick and ourselves. So we know that the level of gold stroke copper as a byproduct sitting in the ground is a real asset. It's not something that we've just discovered. And we sit in a country where we're very fortunate, and we've got the port of Lae, less than 2 hours drive away by paved highway. We have an airport at Lae that we can fly the gold out from when we make our finished Doré bar. And we've really got a total package of assets that really means we've got a building block right from square one that allows us to start the mine up, and that's really where we're heading.
What do you think the market's going to want from your business to see?
Look, I think they will want consistency in terms of production, that we have achieved what we say we will do. That's always a key ingredient, I think. You mustn't overpromise and underdeliver. It's much better to have the opposite approach, and I think we have been conservative in the way we've got about our business. I think we have a great team of people on the ground who have the skills and the ability to work in Papua New Guinea, and it's really getting that consistency of approach, consistency of performance, and getting the message out.
Can you review the capital invested in the project? So Obviously, it was explored. Barrick purchased it for 140 million US, 2007. What did they spend on, and what did they do in the years that followed?
There was, I guess, a double-prong approach. Remember, when Barrick bought this project, my interpretation of it is they bought it for the exploration potential. And to some extent, that's sort of seen by the fact that their exploration guru, Alex Davidson, who's a man who has an enviable reputation, immediately joined us within the advisory board because of his belief that this exploration potential in that part of the world really exists. So there was an exploration effort that took place when Barrick first picked up the mine. And similarly, at the same time, there was a rehabilitation or an improvement of the mine infrastructure, because the mine gave Barrick the opportunity of getting money into the local community, and by that money being dispersed to the local community for work in return meant that getting access for the exploration was a lot simpler. So when they spent their money on it, the camp was upgraded, was improved, the quality of it, the helicopter pad, the airstrip for emergency fly-in, fly-out, for example, in that part of the world, the delivery of electricity by an overhead power line coming from the Yonke Dam less than 30 kilometers away, hydropower supplied power. All those kind of little bits of infrastructure were improved, and most importantly, in the mine itself, the Irumfumpa part of the mine, they made the access from the adit much more accessible. When they took over, the bulk of the access to that small mine was a helicopter ride up, because the main access at that time was a higher level. And so we had a higher level camp, and the main supervisors would fly up. Now, unfortunately, myself and my colleagues aren't the brightest boys in the team, so we always do make mistakes or forget things. And so if you forget something with a helicopter flight, it gets quite expensive. So Barrick quite rightly came in and from the bottom drove this much larger adit from the lower access all the way to access into the mine. So that now, if you like, the bonus for us restarting this mine is we can get access to this mine within a matter of, say, 20 minutes from being at the process plant. So supervision, security, control, management, all improves as a consequence. All those aspects are the key for making sure that your mining performance is as good as you can get it.
At Irumfumpa, what is the potential production profile?
Our estimate today is roughly about 50,000 ounces per annum. So just bearing that in mind, just reflecting just for a second on Barrick, 50,000 ounces a year wouldn't move the little needle in their gauge. But exploration for a multi-million ounce project would. So you can see when I say the change of focus is there, you can see why it's there. So we get that 50,000 in Irumfumpa, kick it off, make it work, and I believe we will do it successfully. Then the upside is, where are we heading next within the next 2 years, and that's Kora.
So the project is permitted. That's
yes,
correct, right?
That's correct.
And what is it like dealing with the government of PNG?
Well, when we put the team together, we were very particular in how we built it up. We've got characters on board who understand the capital markets here in Vancouver, and for that matter internationally, and that's very important, as you can imagine, because we have to get our story out. But we have to also have the team of people that can operate a mine within the constraints that the ore body dictates to us, because we don't tell Mother Earth where the gold is, she tells us where it is. And then thirdly, we've got to operate in country. And Papua New Guinea is a country that's relatively new in terms of independence. So we structured our team to bring on certain people from Papua New Guinea who understand the culture, who understand how to work in that territory, who know where to go to get answers when you've got some relationship issues, who can deal with the population of the Eastern Highlands in a way that is respectful and generates the right link that we want between operations and communities. So our team was built up to ensure that we had that knowledge base, had that experience, and so it's utilising that group of resources to make sure that this mine, over and above just its technical part, can work effectively.
I think some people in the West may have misinformation or have heard some things about PNG that maybe might be scared of it. Can you tell us what it's like from your perspective operating there?
Well, just by sheer convenience, Tommy, let me tell you that just last week, while I was with my colleague down in Scottsdale, he brought to my attention the PGA Tour for golf had its first tournament in Port Moresby. Now, I do not think the PGA Tour would be having a sponsored event in a country that was dangerous, unsafe, unpredictable, etc. So that gives you a pretty good starting point from. But over and above that, the country has got a great deal of decent infrastructure. The government in recent years has had the good fortune of the oil and gas industry coming in, which has meant a lot of money has been spent within the country, and they've a very well established mining code that was put together in the early part of the 90s when the country got independence, and has been managed particularly well since then. And to give you an example of that, of course, is that Barrick itself, remember, still operates 50% of Porgera mine, and Porgera makes 500, 600,000 ounces a year. OK Teddy, Lihir, all those big mines, they're working very well. So the environment is actually good. Now, I'm an expatriate in that country, so I have to understand culture, I have to understand communication, and having worked in a diverse number of countries worldwide, I know sometimes I can, with particularly my accent, say something and people get the wrong end of it. So we've got to work with that team in making sure that that communication within a good country, within a stable country, within a country that in many ways is still very close to Australia, New Zealand, and still a member of the British Commonwealth, for example, has the rule of law, and it works very well.
Is there opposition from the communities in the immediate areas for your company, your project, and so forth?
That's a very good question. The answer is no. Remember, and part of the way to answer it is over the last 10 years, I guess, there's been lots of promises in getting the mine running, etc., getting that money into the communities. It never really percolated down because the company never ran long enough. So there is a great desire, particularly about the younger people in the country who want employment, who want to get skills transferred, who want to learn and develop their lives. So generally, there's a very positive feeling within the community.
So I have never built a mine. Have you?
Yes, I've been lucky enough to have built several in my career throughout Africa, Australia, and Europe.
Tell me a little bit about your life, like where were you born and grew up? And
well, if the accent's not a giveaway, I was born in Scotland, graduated as a chemical engineer and headed over to Africa, and really stayed in Africa for the best part of 30 years, working in the copper mines to begin with, and then up to Ashanti goldfields. Little Ashanti, when I arrived there, was a 120,000 ounce a year, 150,000 ounce a year production unit, and during my tenure there, as I moved up the management structure, etc., we managed to grow Ashanti goldfields from that level of 150,000 ounces to 1.7 million ounces by 1998.
What was your role there, sorry?
I was the Managing Director of Group Projects and the General Manager for Boise Mine, Sansu Mine, that was a 1 million ounce per year production unit. So the projects, it's where I got into projects in many ways. The project in Tanzania, which is known as Geita Mine, came under my watch, as did Siguri, as did Bibiani, 3 gold mines, and as did the Sansu development itself, which became a 600,000 ounce per year production. And then I was lucky enough to get involved with Goldfields of South Africa. At the time, they were the 3rd largest gold mining company. And even with my accent, I headed over to Australia, and our brothers over there and our cousins accepted us very well. And I put together the St Ives mine, which is also a 500,000 ounce a year production unit. So decent experience on the operation, I hope a decent experience in the development of projects. And if I put them together with the team that I've got, in terms of corporate markets and capital markets and local people, I hope we've got a decent enough team to manage the aspects that we have to manage within the development of K92.
Sounds like you've worked at some very large mines. Do you see potential for a large mine with what K92 has?
Yes. Iramfumpa, the startup mine, should be in operation second half towards the last quarter of this year, and we should be making a nice little bit of free cash flow. But really the growth going over to Kora should mean that by 2 or 3 years from now, we should be a mid-tier production company and enjoying that particular environment.
And that could mean potentially more assets and diversification if you got to that point?
I think so. I certainly wouldn't count it out. But to get back to where we started part of this conversation, the focus for us is get the basics right now and what we've got in our hand. Get that done, and let's see where we head to after that.
Can I ask you about funding? Sure. Where do you stand, and where do you have the money that you need to make this a reality?
It was tough. There's no point in denying how difficult it's been within the junior environment for the last plus or minus 2 years, and we were no exception, despite the quality of the asset. But fortunately for us, we were able to get a handle on a New York fund that liked the project and came into the fundraising of it at the time. And so by February this year, we had raised $10.5 million Canadian from that particular fund that was supplemented by our own efforts that I have to say my colleague Brian Cesarchuk was key in pulling some extra cash together, so that right now our funding is probably in excess of about $16 million plus or minus for the overall operation. So I hope we've got enough money in place now, not for the restart, but also for the pains and the gains we'll get as we go forward. So we're well funded. We're in a decent position right now.
So what do you think are the key takeaways about K92 for investors on the launch of the company?
It's an exciting setup right now. We have a mine that we believe will have in operation towards the latter part of this year that produces gold at a level that is in the lower quartile operating cost structure, peels off enough cash flow that moves us with some speed over to the next stage project, Cora, where, you know, if I believe the advice I'm given by a range of quality engineers who know mining projects, we could unlock that at maybe 4 times, 5 times where we are at the moment. If that was the case, that amount of free cash flow going forward in 2-3 years' time is significantly greater. And of course, at that time, well, who knows? You know, you start looking at other assets, as you asked me earlier. You start looking at other opportunities. But don't forget, and I mustn't forget either, that the reason Barrick, and they are a top-class company, or they would not be the world's #1 gold mining company. The reason they went in was the opportunity that exists within the 400 square kilometres of exploration ground that we have and that they bought. So they're in Fumpa, there is Cora, growth within the resource as well as growth in terms of production, but the large porphyry target and other potential growth areas remain out there. So there's 3 legs to the story, and it's therefore, as a consequence, hugely exciting.
What sort of time horizon should investors have if they're considering K92?
Look, I think there's near term, which is the restart. Medium term is Cora, so I'd say, you know, recognize that restart will do well, performance will be good. When we get to Cora, tremendous growth. And getting over there, we've got that exploration underground, as we talked about. So there's going to be a series of news flows coming out from that drilling. So there's every reason to see guys getting excited about the resource growth, even in the near term with Cora, and then the opportunity of unlocking the Cora value. And then long term, there's that blue sky potential. It is elephant country.
Thank you very much, Ian.
You're welcome. Very good.